I did make a huge impulse purchase within the last month.
You're going on a $7,500 cruise? And we spent $400 roughly eating out in 3 days?
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
So you're telling me that the shopping budget you told me that was $0 is not $0. You just spent $400 at least on shopping right there.
Yeah, pretty stupid, right?
Yeah, cancel that. All of them need to be canceled.
I just can't deny the fact that I've had some personal pitfalls and some stagnation that definitely held me back. I have a girlfriend who lives with me. We've combined our finances and our debt situation. In about a year of dating each other, combined, we've paid off $75,000 in debt total. I was working an 8-hour shift and a 10-hour shift. It's 18 hours in a day. People are not going to like to hear that. I already know.
So your impulse decision literally is costing your girlfriend the entire month of November working 30 days in a row. So the question is, what are you going to do about it?
My name is Mark. I'm from Detroit, Michigan, and I'm 36 years old.
Awesome. What do you do for work? I'm in Detroit, Michigan, Mark.
I am a quality technician. I work in the manufacturing industry.
And how long have you been doing that for?
I've been doing this particular job for about 12 years now.
Oh, wow. And how much you make are you doing it?
Currently, I'm making $54,000 a year. I'm hourly at $25.75 an hour.
Are you working just 40 hours a week? Or you doing some overtime?
Overtime can happen occasionally, but generally at this time, I'm working 40 hours a week.
And I also see we have a second temporary job as well. Can you give background on that?
Up until last week, for the last 3 months, I worked the second job. I just let it go a week ago. So this job was making an additional $18.50 an hour. We're also working 40 hours a week. So for a short period of time, I was working 2 full-time jobs, which is absolute insanity. But as you'll see when we look at my finances, it was justified trying to achieve this goal here recently, and it served a purpose. But I reached my wit's end with it. I got a little bit, it caught up with me, losing sleep, couldn't continue it anymore. So I let it go here recently.
Okay. So you're making $18.50 an hour there. 3 months, you're making an extra
$600 a week after taxes.
So you're bringing in an extra $7,500, we'll call it, roughly, of the last 3 months then working this job. Well, on that note, let's talk about your current financial situation then. How would you rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10? 1 being horrific, 10 being picture perfect.
Thought pretty hard about this. I'm going to give myself a very honest 2.
Why do you give yourself a 2?
Well, if you look at all the variables and my age, pretty much, where I am currently, the debts that I have at 36 years old, I think it's just, I'm far behind compared to ideally where the average person would want to be. And I just can't deny the fact that I've had some personal pitfalls and some stagnation and some, other situations that definitely held me back. So at this point in time, I'm giving myself a 2, but I have very high hopes of an upward trajectory in the near future here, as we'll get into.
Good. Well, you're understanding where you are, and let's figure out a path to get you where you want to be. The beautiful thing is you're still young. You still have plenty of life left in you. I mean, even to hit the official Social Security retirement age, you still got over 30 years to get there. So plenty of life to get to that point. You just worked 80 hours a week for the last 90 days. So that means we got life in you. You still got energy. You still got the ability to move around and do things. So that means, hey, what else? What can we do over the next 12 to 24 months to get yourself debt-free to start building some wealth and building your financial future? So on that note, current debts. What are the different debts we have right now?
So currently, as of today, I have 3 debts. I have a auto loan with a balance of $17,878 at a 7.13 APR. I have a Discover It card with a limit of $8,000 that I owe $6,500, and I have a American Express Blue card with a limit of $8,000 that I owe $1,400 on. And I would like to precursor this conversation in saying that there are 2 major factors that I have to incorporate to the conversation. That I am working off of a dual income. I have a girlfriend who lives with me also, which we will absolutely get into that. However, we've combined our finances and our debt situation. So she also has some debts as well. But that's the gist of what I bring to the table.
Okay. So it sounds like some progress has been made on the credit cards, because you originally told me you had about $12,000 in credit cards. So is all that extra income over the last few months been going to paying down this credit card balance? Because now we got about $8,000.
So yes, for the most part, the credit cards, but we also, between the 2 of us, we've paid off $36,000 worth of student loan debt in the last 2.5 months as well.
$36,000 worth of student loan debt?
not to jump all over the place, but in about a year of dating each other combined, we've paid off $75,000 in debt total. And if you look at my income, you start to question, well, how is that possible? She's the one with a much more substantial income than I am. So we can definitely get into that.
Okay. So you paid off $75,000 with the student loan debt. Is there any more student loan debt left on the table?
No, we're both clean. Actually, it was $75,000 total to date. The student loan, there was $29,000 on her end and $6,500 on my end. Over the course of the past year, we've paid off somewhere between $70,000 and $75,000 across different types of debts. Specifically, she had a student loan that was $29,000. She got a degree. I actually am non-degree, but I did accrue a $6,500 student loan debt that I just recently paid off as well.
Awesome. Okay, so you paid off $75,000 worth of debt. So debt that's left on the table then. We've got and we'll get into, I guess, the relationship finance side. I have a few questions on that side too. We got $8,000 with credit card debt, $18,000 with car loan roughly. Is there any other debt in your name or that you bring to the table, and does she have any other debt still?
I'm currently sitting at $25,753.39, of which $17,878 is my car, $6,506 is a credit card, and $1,400 is another credit card. That's what I have. And for her, she has a $400 balance on one credit card, and she owes $16,900 on her card.
Assets. What assets do you bring to your table right now?
This will specifically tie into why I rate myself so low. At 36 years old, I have a 401k that has about $5,000 in it. That's all I have. I rent, and I don't have any investments or any other assets at this time.
Okay. And has that balance ever gone up? Have you ever withdrawn money from your 401k, or I just haven't contributed much to it?
I haven't contributed much to it. There was a period of time where I accumulated a similar amount in past years, within the past 10 years, and I did borrow against it and paid it back. But I've always, just until recently, within recent years of founding individuals like yourself and others, have become financially conscious of this path and this way of living and financial awareness. So no.
We're currently taking action, starting to pay off this debt, making progress on it. Still have, obviously, $25,000 of debt to go. So your net worth is sitting at about negative $21,000, just under that. So definitely still have a lot of progress to go. But like I said at the beginning of this, you're young, you're 36, you've been working 80 hours a week for the last 3 months. So we got life in us to figure out, and we got time on our side. So there's still ways to get out of this and improve the situation, especially if you're working as a team to get out of this. I have questions. What is the process of how long y'all been together, I guess, to start?
We've been together since December of last year, so it's almost been a year.
Oh, wow. So when y'all first got together, you started attacking this debt together.
Funny story. Our very first date, we went to Texas Roadhouse, and I asked immediately. It was almost like a conversation starter as far as where she was mentally and financially. And come to find out, she was doing a lot better than me in terms of saving and but she did have technically more debt than I did. That following week, before we even officially began dating, I convinced her to pay off one of her credit cards immediately. It was the lowest balance of $1,800, and it just completely sucked all the air out of her wimp. Like, it just completely leveled her, having been brought aware of this new type of living and this new, she wasn't privy to any of this knowledge beforehand. So it's just a very funny story that we hit it right off the bat. Stepping into looking at debt, we moved really fast in that regard.
Yeah, and I definitely moving fast. Been together for almost a year, and paying off debt together, combining finances is definitely not a strategy I'd recommend for most people, because it definitely, doing that before you get married, before even you get engaged, it's definitely a risk, because you're not legally bound to either debt or legally bound to each other. But there's progress we made. I'm glad you're communicating and talking about finance, especially on basically the first date, talking about finances. I mean, that's one thing that couples have to be on the same page about, is finances. So I'm glad you're making those decisions. Would I have done it the same route if I was you? Would I suggest you do that? Probably not, because I think that can lead to some sticky situations, unfortunately, when it does come to finances, and if you do combine finances and pay down each other's debts. But my question would be, start figuring out too, I don't know what y'all's timeline is. Is there a future together, long-term, getting married? Start figuring that plan together, because it can be a very sticky situation if you're paying down each other's debts and you don't have that timeline and plan of legally bounding together. So
just to, again, touch on that, we both fully understand that this defies the traditional way of doing things, and that, you know, it could be very risky, as you alluded to. It's just, I guess in a way, and not many people will probably agree with this, but in a way, we've come to the conclusion that I had the knowledge prior to meeting her. However, I was definitely, admittedly, worse with finances than she was. And by her learning this from me and us engaging in this and being in on this, because she jumped right on board. She was fully aware of her circumstances up to that point. She was willing to work hard. She's working just as hard, if not harder, than I am currently as well, in her career. And one thing that we agreed on is that despite us joining forces and her coming to live with me and reducing her bill situation in that regard, she's happy at the fact that she can be on this journey and pay her debt off as well, because in the event things don't work out, we're both going to be debt free. And the intention is for us, even a year in, to be married at some point. And I definitely foresee that being a possibility and something we definitely want. But we did jump the gun, admittedly. We did jump the gun in that.
Yeah, definitely jumping the gun, but hey, I want y'all to have a future together. Sounds like you're a winning team together. I mean, the last 12 months has definitely been winning together, and taking action on life and starting building a plan together. And it's figuring out how to formalize that, how to figure out that plan for y'all. Definitely a very non-typical route that you've gone. And if you had told me, come to me when you first started to do that, I'd tell you you're probably crazy for doing that. But we're here in $75,000 debt paid off. Situation can be a lot worse, I guess, right now.
Yeah, and just to quickly put it into context, the trade-off is that I had the knowledge coming into the situation. She, again, I have to reiterate, she has the income where I make the 54 grand a year. I'm very average in the grand scheme of things. She was averaging, she's making 80 to 90 a year, and with income, I mean, with her overtime, she's a registered nurse. She works in a hospital, and she's, God bless her, I'll say this on camera in real time today. I think she's gonna kill me, I'm getting it wrong. It all blends together. She's on day like 5 or 6 of 30 right now in a row in the hospital. Yes.
Oh, wow.
Working 12-hour shifts. God bless her. She is working every day and sleeping and just paying off debt. And for a period of time, I was working a second job. But anybody that does the math, you know, if you work I was working an 8-hour shift and a 10-hour shift. That's 18 hours in a day. So getting 4 hours of sleep occasionally isn't sustainable for a long time. But I stuck in there as long as I could.
I'll flip it on you at this point. If she's working 12-hour shifts as a nurse, she's working 84 hours a week right now.
Yes, she is.
And she's getting after it, because I know nursing is not easy. My sister's an ICU nurse, and I have plenty of other friends in the medical field. It is not an easy, it is a demanding job, both mentally and physically. You're on your feet, and then you also see a lot of different things in hospitals with sicknesses and deaths and everything else in between. So it is definitely a very physically and mentally draining job.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I mean, I sit behind a desk at my job. I have a very low stress situation that I'm in for the most part. But in her case, I just have to come in and tip my hat. If I had the opportunity at my primary job to scale the overtime during this debt payoff period, I would. But going from one job to the next and then only sleeping for 3.5 to 4 hours, or she would come home and still at least average 6 to 8 hours of sleep, generally 7 or 8 hours of sleep. But I got to a point, there's 3 or 4 hours of sleep, and it really started to get to me. I was just being honest after 3 months of doing that. So, but yeah, she is working a lot of hours.
Well, I'm proud of your progress. We're going to kind of go into here in a second, the current expenses and stuff. But before we do that, you said she got her degree. You had some student loans, but you didn't get a degree. What was your childhood like, and where did you grow up?
Absolutely. So I did state at the beginning of the video, I'm in Detroit. I'm from Detroit, Michigan. I currently live in Plymouth, Michigan, which is a suburb of Detroit. Growing up, I grew up as poor and impoverished as you could possibly be. It was definitely a very unfortunate circumstance. I was split between my parents at a very young age. I was raised by my great-great-grandmother and my great-grandmother and my great-aunt. My grandmother, my mother, and father were doing other things with their lives. Money was not existent in the household. No one owned a car. No one owned the house. It was government assistance, food stamps, the whole nine during my childhood. So definitely not a strong upbringing or any structural guidance or knowledge ability regarding money. I mean, in my early years, things were okay. They progressively got worse over time as some of those matriarchs and older people started to pass away. Things got definitely a lot tighter, but I didn't have the typical upbringing. It was very unfortunate in a lot of instances.
And I'm assuming then growing up, no one talked about money much or taught you about money, budgeting, any of that nature.
Absolutely not. None whatsoever.
So what kind of got you on the financial education route where you started learning and educating yourself about finances?
Once I achieved some independence and I got a little older, I graduated high school. Now, I did go to college. However, I was in a circumstance to where I didn't have any money. I didn't have parental support. I had to go to work. I found myself going and getting involved in manufacturing jobs. With that came a lot of overtime, and that took precedent over the education that I was striving for at the time. So I just got into a habit of working a lot, and more importantly, I started to indulge in certain hobbies over time. So throughout my teen years, all through my 20s, up until my early 30s, I have no shame in admitting this, I was an avid trading card game player, video game player, everything from Pokemon trading cards, Yu-Gi-Oh, stuff like that. I was heavily involved in, and those types of hobbies are absolutely money suckers. They will consume you, and not even from a collector standpoint. I traveled the country and competed at a high level in tournaments for those games as well. And just over the years, working a hourly job and just marginally scaling my income, combined with traveling and the expenses that tie into that, room and board, carpooling, or maybe a flight here and there, keeping up with the cards, the collections, and diverting my time into that instead of learning about finances is what kept me there. How I got to answer your question to how I found out about financial awareness. I got to a point where I realized I just wasn't saving money. I was stuck. I felt stuck. I started to accumulate debt. The more money I started to make, I took out some credit cards. I found myself in debt. I started to finance cars. The very first car I financed was at a ridiculous interest rate. I had 7 years of pain. I'm currently in another situation now, but the first one was far worse. So I did some scour. I'm a pretty resourceful guy, pretty, genuinely, I want to do better for myself. So I started to research, and I found Dave Ramsey. When I tell you I've binge watched every rant of Dave Ramsey. I'm in love with them. All of those old school 2016, 15 rants are my favorites, but I just turned my attention away from the games and from the recreational things, and really started to pick my life up. And that's where that's how I've arrived where I am now with that.
And so about when did you find Dave Ramsey and start kind of watching his content?
I want to say this was around 2018, 19.
So it's been 5 years, we're still in debt. Mark, what are we doing here?
Yes, we are. And the thing is that when I first found Dave Ramsey, you have to understand that I still was involved. I was new. I watched him for the first year or two without fully committing to a plan. And I did have IRS debt at one point. I had collections at one point. At one point during that time of initially finding him, I paid off maybe 10 or 15 grand over the course of that year or two. And this is after a lifetime of not having the knowledge. So I didn't get right on board and get a gazelle intense from the beginning. I still was working with an $18 or $20 an hour income. It was definitely a slow start. And then after that point of getting out of the collections and a few, I had an IRS debt, I was in my previous relationship was complete polar opposite of this one, where we were not on the same page financially. And there was a lot of back and forth in regard to finances and me making progress and then going back and, doing that. So it wasn't until really 2 years ago out of the 5 where I really started to try to get more serious. And within the last year, this is the most serious I've ever been. And that was all attributed to really meeting my new girlfriend and attacking this thing as serious as we could.
Yeah. Well, hey, found Dave 5 years ago. Sometimes it takes some time to get on the plan to get out of debt, and also doing it yourself. It's very difficult if you don't have someone to cheer you on or someone to hold you accountable. And now you found that partner in your life that holds you accountable, but it's part of the journey as well. So that's what sometimes it takes is, my wife and I are on the same page about finances and have goals and aspirations and make decisions based off that. And it's good to have people that hold each other accountable and support you and kind of walk through life, because doing it alone can definitely be a difficult route to go. So I'm a big fan of Dave Ramsey. I took his class when I was in high school. I was very fortunate. My class offered a personal finance class, and it was basically Dave Ramsey's online class, and learned a lot, got me started on my journey, started figuring out how about budgeting, saving, investing, compound interest, and definitely have learned, not followed him to a T in regards to investing only in index funds or mutual funds. I got my butt caught in single stock investing and lost a lot of money in 2021, but I've gotten back. Before that, I was solely index funds and was doing well. And I guess a little bit of single stocks when I first started in 2015, and then went kind of index funds fully. And then I got off that train in 2021, learned my lesson the hard way with SPACs down 80% now, 90% now. And I've fully committed back to the index fund, mutual fund approach without risking myself, because I'm not going to be the next Warren Buffett. So big fan of Dave Ramsey, and a lot of people hate on his work, but I can promise you, listen to Dave Ramsey, following his steps, you will not be broke, because you're living on the lesson you make, you're paying off debt, you're saving 15% of your gross income and investing it, and you can enjoy life. So people get mad at Dave Ramsey and his different takes, but 95% of Americans would benefit listening to him. So
Absolutely.
on that note, we're going to dive into your monthly budget first. We have net income $3,200 a month, just over that. Rent $1,120. Utilities $284. Home maintenance, you put $106, but you're renting. What is that for?
Yes, I have a laundry on site, and then I incorporated my renter's insurance. The renter's insurance should have went in a rent mortgage. I put it in the home maintenance, and then toiletries for the apartment that we live in. Yes, because I actually paid the car insurance on a 6-month basis, so it was paid for 6 months. So I mean, if we broke it down, it's $200 a month, and that is myself and my girlfriend's car insurance combined.
Okay, car payment, the big one, $414 in there, and then we got gas, $100.
The gas situation, really quick. I'm extremely fortunate to live less than 1 minute away from my job. I have a 1-minute commute to my job. The second job that I let go is about a half an hour commute. But now that $100 in gas is going to drop significantly. It's probably going to drop by half outside of the other little errands that I run. But I don't even have to stop at a light on my way to work. It's right across the street.
There we go. That's good.
Actually, the only thing that she's currently responsible for is her car note. She has a Patreon and an Apple Music, and that's it.
We got groceries $0. Is the girlfriend buying all the groceries?
I actually buy groceries. I am the cook in the house. My girlfriend, God bless her, she can do some things, but I'm more of a cook. But she is only responsible for those things. And what you'll notice is that during the time that I was working both jobs, as we get into my finances, my Achilles heel, my biggest weakness is eating out. That is what I spend the majority of my money on. It is, we will see shortly, but I am the one who goes to the store and cook groceries and buy groceries and cook. But we haven't bought groceries lately because we're working so much. We usually will eat out.
Okay, so I got $300 for the groceries, which brings your total necessities to $2,500. Then we got subscriptions, $11, eating out $200, which sounds like we're blowing through that. We got health and fitness for $44, pet for $50. So that has your total fund money at $304 and total expenses for $2,800. Does that sound? Are we going to see that on the transactions, or are we blowing through this $2,800 budget?
Oh, you're definitely going to see it on the transactions, but you're going to see specifically with food far over budget on my end, not on her end. Yeah, that's what we will see. And the $2,800 is more like $2,600. The $2,800 includes that $200 for the car insurance, which I kind of didn't factor in on a monthly basis, even though it technically is, but I understand. So yeah, it is.
You got to factor that in on a monthly basis, because then you go up to the month that that's due, and you're just going to have a $1,200 a month payment in there, and that's going to throw that month out of whack. So you got to at least figure out how to save and have that. I mean, same thing with like my home maintenance budget. I don't spend $400 a month on home maintenance, but I got that in my budget every single month. And guess what? That budget goes negative every single month. I don't have a home repair. But when like last December, when I had a $3,000 water line break, guess what? I had that budget in there, and it went in. It fit in that category. But you still have to put that in your budget and account for it. That's why I have at $2,800 versus your $2,600. That's still basically a monthly recurring charge. You just pay it up front for 6 months. So monthly expenses, where do we want to start? Because I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 different PDFs you sent me.
And there are 6 credit cards that I have. When I started learning about financial awareness, one of the misinformations that I was given is that, oh, you need to have a credit card. I am not entirely a credit card person. I admit that, but there was a period of time where I got credit cards so that I can start carrying a low balance on them and making payments to build my credit. Fortunately, of the 6 that I have, only 2 of them carry a balance. All of the other ones are at 0, but there's absolutely no need for me to have as many as I have. We're projected to be out of debt. We were initially projected to be out of debt by New Year's. We did something that has elongated that by 1 month, but our projected date of being out of debt is effectively February 1st now. Upon that date,
Car loans and all,
everything, yes,
and we got $42,000 worth of debt left, and that's gonna be paid off in the next 4 months.
that's correct. Yes, it will be.
Holy smokes! How much is she bringing home a month if she's working overtime on all these shifts?
I think net right now. It's been a month since I looked at her check stub. Net right now, she's on the year at about 140,000 right now.
Oh wow! So essentially, you're living off your salary, and all of hers is going towards paying this debt off.
Currently, the majority of my income is paying all the bills in the household now, and all of her income is paying off both of our debts right now. And whatever little is left from my income outside of rent and all the bills, we're also putting towards debt. But that's the way we're splitting it currently, which is completely out of the norm. I just literally said that we were helping each other pay off her debt, and obviously she's contributed more to that situation than I am, which is not, people are not going to like to hear that. I already know, but I am going to get dragged. I know.
There definitely will be some hate for this different situation, but you're essentially operating like a married couple with joint finances, but you're not a married couple. But I guess there's worse things in the world that could happen if all this debt's paid off in the next 4 months. I don't know what to think about it yet. But my question, going back to the credit cards, 6 credit cards. You don't need 6 credit cards, especially when you're trying to pay off debt. I am in the Dave Ramsey boat where, well, I guess I'm Dave-ish on this. If you're in debt, credit cards should not be a thing. And you've been paying off $175,000 worth of debt over the last 12 months, and to still have credit cards open is just shooting yourself in the foot because it's causing you to spend money. I mean, you have little money in your checking account, $38 to be exact, but we still are giving ourselves the ability to charge stuff on credit cards, as I can see looking at your statements right now. And I can promise you, your debt situation would be even lower right now if we've been operating on a debit card situation for the last 12 months. And frankly, I have a credit card. I do. I have a personal credit card. I use it with my wife, but I pay it off in full every single month. Never carried a balance on it. I don't. If you carry balance, pay interest on it, credit cards just destroy you. And they open up things, especially 6 credit cards, because frankly, I used to play the credit card game where I'd have tons of different credit cards. And I've started canceling credit cards because I canceled 2 of them this year because they wouldn't waive the annual fees on it. I'm not going to pay $95 for a credit card that will earn me 1% on $3,000 I might spend over the course of the year. It's not going to earn even the annual fee back. So I've started consolidating credit cards this year because it's a game that just makes my personal finances simpler and leaves no opportunity for charging more money than I need to on it. So first suggestion would be closing these credit cards that don't have balances, because as I see on here, I mean, the first credit card, we'll look at the Blue Cash Everyday card. You spent $3,088 in the last statement on this card. And that is more. We're talking about how we're living off of your income and all of hers was going towards debt, but we spent more money on this single credit card in the last 30 days than you brought in on a monthly basis.
Right. And one of the things that I spoke to earlier in the video is that we were projected to be out of debt by New Year's, and we elongated that by 1 month because I did make a huge impulse purchase within the last month. I booked us a cruise for March.
Mark!
Yes.
What are you doing? How much was that? Because I don't even, what card is that on?
The primary charge was on the Discover card, which is a 0% card, but I did put the, I don't know, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. It doesn't matter. Trust me. I understand it does not matter. The remainder of the balance, which were the gratuities and all the other fun extra add-on charges and the excursions that I chose, went on the American Express card. It's $7,500, but actually I just had...
You're going on a $7,500 cruise? I thought cruises were like $800 for a week.
Well, this one was a little bit more expensive, I guess.
Did you get the penthouse or something?
No, we got a balcony suite, and we did get the premium drink plan and the limited Wi-Fi and some excursions and all that stuff.
So your impulse decision literally is costing your girlfriend the entire month of November, working 30 days in a row that you just said she's doing, that entire paycheck. She wouldn't have to do that for an extra month to get out of this debt because it's purchased.
I wanted to surprise her with something nice, but I jumped the gun. We should have been done first. We should have been done first in my mindset, which I agree 100%. It's not the right decision. I elongated our process by a month by getting this cruise because combined, we will have that cruise paid off within a month. There were cheaper options for the cruise, and I had no business doing it. But yes, it shouldn't have happened. I agree 100%.
That's this Discover card. 2,400 purchases, 2,200 that is the cruise, and I'm assuming that there are more payments coming for that. You said it was $7,500, but I only see 2,200, or is most of that remaining on the American Express?
I sent you an updated statement. So at the time that I sent it, it was $2,200 on there. And then I added the cruise to that. So that's what brought it up to the $7,500, which put it right almost at the limit. And since then, and that has gone down recently because I'm sure you know how these things work. They included the airfare and they gave us a deal where it was buy one, get the second airfare free for $1,000, but I canceled it. We're going to book the flight closer to the time of the trip ourselves. So I did get a refund for $1,053 on the cruise, which brought the total price down to about $6,500 now.
I've got to know, for a $7,500 cruise,
we're going over to Antigua, Tortola, Barbados, St. Martin, St. Thomas, all those fun places down there.
Mark.
Yeah.
I mean, I hurt for your girlfriend right now because she's out there working 30 hours. I mean, obviously you're working hard too, but it sounds like it was more of your impulsivity, not hers. Y'all are working, hey, let's figure out a plan to kind of celebrate, but definitely jumped the gun way too hard on this and you want to surprise her, but she's stressed. She wants to get out of working so much and you just kind of push it off to the future because this impulsivity decision.
That is correct.
Again, if you didn't have any credit cards, you couldn't do this. So that's why we need to get rid of these credit cards, cancel them, because I don't want you to make any more stupid impulse decisions over the next 4 months before you get paid out of this.
And I can guarantee you, Bailey, that outside of this, and then no one's going to believe it because everyone knows how this type of trend and how this type of, it's just people do stuff like this on a whim. But the fact of the matter is this is the one sole solitary thing that we are allowing ourselves for the year 2024, because I didn't disclose this yet, but our plan for the next 2 years is to aggressively save once we got out of debt February 1st, including the cruise from that point on for the duration of 2024 without working this influx in hours. Without working this much, we want to save over the course of the next 2 years and be married in order to have a fully funded emergency fund, to have a down payment on a house, a sizable down, more than 20%, maybe a 50% down payment on the house. That's the overarching goal. But yes, I made a very impulsive decision. I did this at heart. It was for her and for me, knowing that we paid off $100,000, in excess of $100,000 over the course of a year.
I didn't know Norwegian cruises could be that expensive. So, Mark, you're working so hard to be this impulsive. Let's go through the other stuff. See what other expenses we need to tear up. So, I mean, this card, I don't think this doesn't include. I see the extra statements that you sent over the transactions that include the Norwegian stuff, but there's still $3,000 worth of transactions on here. I mean, we've got Texas Roadhouse. You spend $150 at Texas Roadhouse in a day. We went to Benihana for $123 the night before. We went to Longhorn Steakhouse the night before for $65.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
I mean, we spent $400 roughly eating out in 3 days.
The last 2 weeks of working the second job, I started to, and there's no excuse. As I stated in the beginning, I precursor this, it's way over budget. It is way over budget, and it's not something that I normally do. However, there's no excuse. I eat too much. I spend too much on food.
I mean, you're cooking at home, you say a lot, but I mean, Longhorn Steakhouse and Texas Roadhouse and Benihana, I mean, if you had gone somewhere that was like a taco restaurant or something that was like $30, would I be that mad? Probably not, but we're going to get steak for $400, Benihana's over the course of 3 days. I mean, that's insane.
But what you'll notice is this is not consistent. There was a stretch of time that 1 week was bad, but then if you were to scale back the previous months, this is not a common occurrence. This is something that I don't want to go down a rabbit hole of like stress levels and lack of sleep and just, but yes, I do generally enjoy eating nicer.
You in a Texas Roadhouse 2 weeks later for $78. You really like Texas Roadhouse? I guess that's where you're on your first date.
That is where we went on our first date.
And then we went to Longhorn Steakhouse on October 8th. So you went on the 6th, and then you went to Benihana again on the 6th, and then you went to Longhorn on the 8th. So you did it in September, and you did it again in October.
Not every week, not every single week.
And we're door dashing in between.
No, not anymore. So the only reason I DoorDash as periodically as you see there, which was only within the span of time that I was working at that extra job, you have to realize, Bailey, that I would start my primary job at 7:30 in the morning, and then I would get off at 4 p.m. I would be at the next job at 5 p.m. and work until 3 in the morning. So there's no time in between. I could theoretically on the way to the other job stop and get some fast food or something, but there have been instances where I might eat lunch at my day job and not be hungry in between jobs. And then once I get to the second job about 10, 11 o'clock at night, I'm starving. And my only option was to either wait and not eat anything or DoorDash. I may track all of my finances. This is the first time I really looked at my statements. It was very eye-opening to see the amount that I was spending on food. I got to admit, I was overboard. Yes.
And this month with the 3,000 expenses, I would assume at least 1,500 of this is on food, at least. And we got some stuff like D&B on here. We've got some gas on here. We got Sam's Club. We got groceries. We got an AT&T bill. We have two AT&T bills. Why do we have two AT&T bills? One's $135, one's $72.
I usually only pay my AT&T bill. So around that time, I brought her on to my phone bill, and my phone broke. I had a paid-off phone. It broke. I upgraded into a new S23. I did get a trade-in value, for about $900 off the phone. But I'm on installments again for that phone. But I do get a employee discount and the installment discount. So when I upgraded my phone, I got charged the taxes, which was, I believe, the $71. And then I got charged the accessories, phone case, screen protector, all that fun stuff for that phone at that time. And I put that on the credit card, which I shouldn't do. And you mentioned earlier, I do carry a low checking account balance, which is completely wrong, but I am very meticulous about managing the necessary expenses for the month to where I'm not going to go in overdraft. I'm not going to have an interest charge on a credit card.
No, but you're going to put it on a credit card.
Correct. But I will put those finances on a credit card, which is not right. It's not right at all.
Let's go to the Capital One card. So Capital One, you spend $104, so your balance is only $44. You made some payments on it. Cryptozoic.com. What is that?
Cryptozoic is a website that sells deck building trading card games. So I had last year I did a Kickstarter for something. It was the shipping charge was $44 for it to arrive here in April of next year. That's what that was. The Kickstarter that I did was, I think, $200.
So you're telling me that the shopping budget you told me that was $0 is not $0. We're starting to find out.
Well, it wasn't my intention to be dishonest about that. That was a one-time purchase. That's not a regular. I don't allot that for myself on a monthly basis. I do buy a particular, there's a game that I keep up with. When they release something new, like once a year, I'll buy it, maybe $200 a year.
But you still have to account for that in your monthly budget because it's still going to happen. I mean, I have my shopping budget. I don't spend that full amount every single month, but I know that these irregular purchases are going to happen, whether it's new shoes, whether it's new clothes, whatever it is. Those are going to happen at some point each month. So you still have to account for it, or each year, you still have to account for it in your monthly budget so that when that time comes, you have it built in there. So I don't care if it's irregular purchases or what it is, you have to make sure you're averaging out across the entire year. Okay, so now we're going to go into the Chase credit card. We have, it says a 365 balance. So we got Amazon for 35, Amazon for 14, Amazon for 13, Amazon for 146, Amazon for 173, Amazon for 19, Amazon for 41, Amazon for 24. So again, shopping budget. We got to make sure we're putting that in the shopping budget because you just spent $400 at least on shopping right there. That's not accounted for anywhere. What was that for? Any of those necessities?
Technically, no. Some of them were like things around the house and like little things, but majority of that were for things surrounding the cruise. I bought a new luggage.
Cruise isn't just cost you the $6,500 plus the extra $1,000 per flight. It's costing you $7,500 plus all the stuff you're gonna buy for it.
Well, minus the 1,000. I got refunded the 1,000 for the flight. We're gonna do that separately later. But yes, the 500 or so, 400 or 500 in Amazon. I mean, miscellaneous stuff like for all of the little knickknacks that you take on a cruise with you is what I went and got on Amazon.
And then we got the Discover card that we just talked about, the $2,000 in payments on there for the cruise. And that has updated payments there. And then we've got, what is this Merrick Bank? Is that?
It's like a little unknown. I don't think anybody knows them. It's just a small little card that I have. They charge me a $4 service charge every month. That'll be one of the first cards I get rid of there, but it's a zero balance.
So you're just paying $4 for fun because it's not even a transaction on here.
Yeah, pretty stupid, right? Yeah.
Yeah, cancel that.
It'll be canceled tomorrow. First thing tomorrow, I promise you.
All of them need to be canceled.
We're going to work on that too.
And then we got a personal credit line. What is that with Upgrade?
Upgrade, that occurred during a time where, oh man, I got that card a few years ago. I was in a financial crunch. I was, definitely I was behind on some things, and I took that out. It at one point was maxed out a few years ago. It got paid down. I don't put anything on it now. It's just there. The only reason that I'm keeping these things alive is coming out of the back end of paying off the debt. We want to have history on the credit cards.
No, and having a good credit score, yes, helps you get a few points, a little bit lower interest rate when you're buying a house. But right now, what it's costing you is spending a ridiculous amount of money that you could be saving for a down payment that would offset that. Or even having 6 credit cards. You don't have to have 6 credit cards to have a good credit score. I mean, I have one personal credit card right now, and I have a credit score that's 800, somewhere in that ballpark, just under 800. It fluctuates up and down, but you don't have to have 6 credit cards when you're better off spending less money using a debit card than you are focusing on the credit score game. I can promise you that.
It's not my intention. It's not my intention at all to try to capitalize on points or to, beat the system. I've read the books. I've watched all the videos. I know that they know more about trust me, I have the knowledge, but I'm not perfect. These transactions with food are the biggest disadvantage that I have in the grand scheme of things. I mean, we're not taking 2 steps forward to take 5 steps back, but at the same time, it is a hindrance. And I like to say that I'm the only one that has this. She is comfortable eating absolutely cheap, and I am for the most part too. But yes, it's a me issue when it comes to those type of high spending for food. That's not something that she does at all. I am the guilty person in that regard, 100%.
On the checking account, we got $38 in the bank account right now, and you still eat out on this card. We got Taco Bell on here. We got a lot of vending machines. I'm assuming that's from work. The $1 vending machine transactions. Yeah, I see a lot of the little vending machines. Taco Bell, Wendy's, Chipotle, DoorDash, Longhorn Steakhouse for $107. So, yeah, looking through these transactions, main things, food. When you're budgeting your food, you need to set a strict budget. And you have a phenomenal income between the two of you, clearing $10,000 in net income, and you're being very intense about paying off this debt. And okay, set a eating out budget, set a grocery budget, and stick to it. I mean, that will save you. You spent over $1,000 eating out last month. It looks like, at least. If you set a budget at $500, great. That means you got $125 a week to eat out, and that means okay, we're not going to Longhorn, we're not going to Texas Roadhouse. We're gonna go get Chipotle and spend $25, or we're gonna go to Wendy's and spend whatever. And you can still have the ability to eat out when you want to, but that at least brings your spending from $1,000 to $500. And that margin is going to go towards paying off this debt faster. Because your advice right now is food. I understand. I love food. Food is great. It's one of the best things about life is travel and food. 2 best things, honestly. And but the issue is that's furthering down the line. And you made an impulse decision to go on this cruise for $7,000. So guess what? I'm going to tell you, you got to take away your food and your vice, what you want. She wants to eat cheaply. Guess what? Let's eat cheaply so you can at least make up some money over the next 3 to 4 months to pay down this debt faster.
It's a disservice to not only myself, but especially to her to be eating this nice during this process. I understand that 1,000%. She's working every day this month for our benefit.
But budgeting, just have to get that under control and stick to that plan. And you have to get on the same plan with her if y'all are having combined finances that, hey, we're eating out. It sounds like she's online if you, on the same wavelength of spending less money on the food. You need to get on that wavelength with her, frankly, and say, okay, I love food, but because you're hustling to eat out, because you're hustling to work so much, I want to cut back on our food budget. And that's going to allow us to get all this faster. So you got to be on the same plan with that. But budgeting, you got to start doing that, because if I asked you probably at the beginning of this how much money you spent on food, you would have said a lot, but you probably wouldn't know how much you actually spent on food.
Of course. Yeah. And one thing that I want to say on her behalf as well, too, is that she'll be the first to tell you, aside from working, she doesn't do anything else. And that's all she needs to do, obviously. But when it comes to, I do make sure that she eats more often than her. Like, she will occasionally stop also and eat, not nearly on the scale that I do, but I make sure that when I do grocery shop, she has lunch to take. One small little detail that I left out, there are actually 3 of us in this apartment. My brother lives with us. He pays $500 a month of rent too.
Is that towards the $1,200, or is your split $1,200 after he pays?
That's $1,200 total. He pays $500 towards it.
Okay.
Yeah, so my brother, I actually moved before my girlfriend came here. I moved, my brother had a situation. I won't go into it. He had to find somewhere new to live. He's 25 years old. I took him in with me. He had a pretty rough situation. He was adopted into another family. Things were starting to go sour there. Long story, but I went and got him and moved him out with me and upgraded into a 2-bedroom. I got him a job at the parent company down the street to where I work. He's making about 17 or 18 bucks an hour down there now with some overtime. And I just charge him $500 a month only for rent.
Okay, so that cuts your living expenses down by $500 I didn't know about. So that means should be about $2,300 a month in expenses, versus right now we're spending, I can't even out of how much is being spent across this, because we have the cruise payments and all that in there. It's hard to tell, but food is being blown out of the water. So budgeting, you got to be tracking every single expense. You got to get yourself on a budget and stick to it. And if you start lighting up, say, oh, Texas Roadhouse for this one celebration, or Longhorn this day, you're going to find an excuse every single day, and you have to just cut that down as lean as possible. DoorDash, get rid of that.
Oh, it's done. That's done.
And then when it comes to credit cards, frankly, if you want to play the credit card, I want to keep them open for my credit score, whatever, fine. You don't need 6. Close, pick 1 or 2. And guess what? Don't put them in your wallet. Put them in the freezer, lock them away, whatever it is, get id of them.
If you look back there, there's a bookcase back there. There's actually a little box that I keep them in back there right now. So,
yes, it sounds like that current strategy is not working. So you got to figure out, well, what is the strategy that does work so you don't spend money on it? And it's cutting them up and you physically can't use them. And then when you got debt, you reorder a new card. Sure, go that route. Or cancel, consolidate down, and you don't need 6.
None of this is good as far as what we've discussed, the food and stuff, but I'll have you know that those cards zero balances have some of the most ridiculous interest rates that you're going to see. They're all right at about 30%. The one card that has the biggest balance is at 0%. The Amex card is at about 28 or something, which is ridiculous. But all the other cards at 0%, I wouldn't put anything. I know just as well as you do watching how easy it is to slip into that impulsive, oh, here we go again situation.
And you're still slipping into it right now. So that's why I'm saying you got to get rid of them.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree at all.
So the question is, what are you going to do about it?
I'm going to do exactly what you said here. For sure, there's 2 of them that I feel comfortable right now completely getting rid of entirely. The one merit card and...
Get rid of the Amazon one while you're at it.
Okay.
That free Prime or whatever benefits of it is just going to make you spend more money on Amazon. I can promise you that.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that at all.
And the other 2, put them somewhere else besides that box, because that box obviously is not working. So that's the second thing you got to work on is the credit cards, because the budget, putting a budget only helps if you actually stick to it, and those credit cards are allowing you to not stick to it. With Texas Roadhouse, with Longhorn, with Amazon, with the cruise. So you got to really figure out whatever works for you in terms of you not spending money on those, whether it's getting rid of all of them, whether it's putting them in the freezer, putting them somewhere else, telling your girlfriend to hide them somewhere where you have absolutely no clue where they are. I don't care what it is. Next is when it comes to your girlfriend, she is working 30 hours or 30 days this month as a nurse. You got to take care of her. and that is stressful as can be doing. That's not sustainable. You gotta take care of her, make sure she's sleeping, make sure she's eating, making sure she's taking care of herself mentally and physically. And I mean, I know you're trying to hustle to get out of this, but after these 35 days, even if she can break up and get at least one day off somewhere in the middle of that, is like, you can't be doing that every single month because she's gonna go crazy. It's just not gonna be good for her.
I do everything that I can to make sure that she is comfortable and prepared, and pack her lunches. Just today, I cooked today and, sent her to work with a lunch. So,
And rightfully you should.
yes, rightfully I should, because like I said, I'm a quality technician. I just do administrative and kind of desk work, and it's very low stress. I can't understand her world. She explains a lot to me. I know you and I both know how strenuous the medical field is and what she goes through on a daily basis, and what she can walk into any kind of situation. She's actually a progressive neuro nurse. It's a completely different world for me. So I commend her, and the best way that I can honor her is to tighten up my food budget. That is the one area, and yeah, maybe not buy a cruise on a whim. Tightening up the food budget is something that has to be done. Has to be.
And then next suggestion would be continue to educate yourself. I mean, right now you're talking about wanting to buy a house in a few years. The financial journey never stops, whether you're in debt, whether you're out of debt, whether you have all the money in the world. Continue to educate yourself, continue to learn. Start learning more about buying a house. What do you need to do? What are benchmarks you want to be at? When you are looking at buying a house, make sure you're running the numbers on a sustainable, normal work schedule for you and her, not her working 30 days a month. Because if you go buy a house, you working based off her income, working 30 days a month, that is going to put you in a horrible situation when she looks at you one day and says, hey, I can't do this anymore. So you got to be really just smart about that and educate yourself there. Or meet Sadie if you're familiar with him. He has some great resources and stuff about just buying a house, the costs associated with it. And I'm kind of in the ballpark with him where it's kind of a mixture of him and Dave. Dave's like 25% of your net take home pay, 25 to 30%. I'm a fan of 25 to 30%. And what Ramit kind of talks about is just make sure you understand and run the numbers before you buy the largest purchase of your life. Because a lot of people go into home ownership thinking, oh, my rent's $2,300, but my mortgage will be $2,500. It's only $200 difference and I'm building equity. I should do it 10 times out of 10. But the issue is a lot of people don't understand the closing costs associated with it. I mean, my closing costs of my house were thousands of dollars. I had a water line that burst, $3,000 months after moving in. I had a tax bill for $3,000 that I had to pay. And there's a lot more costs associated with it. So in the first 12 months, I had $6,000 something worth of unexpected transactions. And so that's basically $500 more a month that I'm paying towards this house that I wasn't expecting. And that doesn't account for a roof breaking or something else, AC unit going out. More expensive thing. So you really have to understand the numbers and make sure that you're putting yourself in a good financial situation when it comes to buying a house. And I commend you. Hey, you have a plan of, we want to save up money as much as possible. Build the emergency fund first, which is great. Do that, and then start saving for a house aggressive. And while you're saving for the house, make sure you're educating yourself about home buying, the costs associated with it, and buying less house than you can afford.
Before we cross that bridge, we're going to definitely want to sit down and, we're for sure going to be married by the time we start making those decisions. We're going to have to be. Now, you would argue you should be as well. And we're not. But before we buy a house together, we will be married. Before we have a kid together, we will be married. Hopefully, that's the plan, at least. We're definitely going to be students, people like yourself, and just watching all the content that we can to make sure that we're not going to take what we're approved for a house. We're gonna be scaled down all the way down to our bare bones 40-hour a week, whatever that situation is, with enough reserves in place and no debt to wisely go into that situation. Going into 2026, those are the numbers that we're looking at. Half down on a modest house, $30,000 in emergency finances, and about $20,000 in home furnishing funds. That's what we want to have.
I like it. I like that plan, and great goal to have, and we'll set you up for success to live below your means and just continue to educate yourself. I made a video. The title is Owning a Home is a Scam or Buying a Home is a Scam. And I kind of run through different misconceptions and things with home ownership that people overglorify. I don't understand. I did buy my house with my wife, but we have a goal of paying it off in the next 5 years. And we're on track to do that. No matter the interest rate, that's our goal. But just have to understand a lot of things. Because frankly, even getting into buying a home, year one was a lot more expensive than I expected. I didn't expect for a water line or a $3,000 tax bill out the gate. Frankly, I did not. So I was learning and want to share some learnings that I had and also what I see friends, family, and other people doing. So
she, within the next year, is planning to go back to school for a bachelor. She wants to go into nurse practitioner potentially, which is obviously going to
cash flow in it.
Absolutely, 100%. We both are in situations where we can get reimbursed. through our employers, and under no circumstances are we taking out debt on that. It's going to be cash flow. We'll be out of debt by the time we start signing up for school. Me personally, now I did state that I'm a quality technician. I'm in the process now of studying to take the certified quality engineer test. So I'm going to be looking at a wage increase. I'll probably be transitioning into a salary wage within the next year or two upon getting that certification and getting maybe a degree, a little associates or something on top of it. I'll be looking at an $80,000 or $90,000 a year salary around that time as well. So
that was the next thing I was going to touch on. I was like, you are sound way too intelligent and smart to be making $54,000 a year. I mean, you know your numbers. You're very educated, and I mean, making $54,000 a year when you said that was your income, definitely think that you should be in a higher, finding a career role at that company, or what you're already doing is working on a degree that can help you get qualified for that engineer role and make $80,000 or $90,000. And that will help you tremendously save money and do that. But that was one of the things I was going to ask is, been in this company for 12 years, making $54,000 a year on an hourly rate. What is the future trajectory and career path? But I'm glad you're already working on that and making big strides on that. So
sure. And yes, absolutely. And it's coming out next year, scaling up my income, and whether it's with my current organization or moving on, is definitely going to be some changes here in the near future. And I'm going to assume my true potential. But even that, as I educate myself more, is only seemingly a short-term goal, because I got to be blunt when I say this, that the end-all be-all for me isn't punching the clock or, reserving myself to, I have higher aspirations too, that maybe I can venture into something on my own at some point and find a passion that is going to transcend me out of the normal, everyday working class life. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I would like to venture into some much bigger things in the future, aside from just keeping my eye on a certain salary or, something like that. So there's that too.
Awesome. Well, one thing I would suggest too is educate yourself about investing. Obviously right now, very minimal investments for being 36, and you're obviously taking giant strides right now. And again, everyone's situation is different. But once you get out of debt, I would look at, okay, do you have a 401k match? If you get on a salary, does your girlfriend have a 401k match? I would do that first. Then I'll look at, personally, I'm a big fan of like maxing that out. But if you're saving to buy a home, take the match, the rest of it go towards the housing fund, or do the match and then fund the Roth IRA. I mean, you guys are should be living under $3,000 a month and should still be clearing $8,000 a month in take-home pay. Start funding those investment accounts, taking the match and the Roth IRA.
Yeah, she has $20,000 in a 403b account. I just have the $5,000, but once we become debt-free, we're going to scale back up to 15% of our incomes. We are matched. I think her match situation, I think she's 100% matched if I'm not mistaken. And could be wrong, but I know I'm matched at 5% with my current employer. So that's going to be a given. We're going to do that. And from there, just educating myself about low risk. I don't want to do anything necessarily high risk. I want to just get in maybe some index funds or mutual funds. I don't want to do single stocks or any day trading or anything crazy like that.
I can promise you'll lose money. It's like 90% of day traders or traders lose money. And if 90% of actively managed funds lose money, then guess what? I can promise you, unless you become the next Warren Buffett, it's very unlikely that's going to happen. So the odds are not in our favor to become the next Warren Buffett. So,
and one thing that I like to happily report too is that I have convinced my 25-year-old brother to put $200 to $300 in his high yield savings account starting now. Everything that I know is being funneled down to him too, except for spending
not the food or the cruises.
I've had sat down with him and had conversations, and I'm doing the best I can to not only get through what I'm getting through, but to instill, because they weren't there for me. And if I can provide that insight for him, he can have a far better head start than I did with that knowledge as well. So I'm very happy about that potential outcome as well.
That's awesome. Definitely, it's good to help educate people. I mean, I talk about money with my family, with my friends. I argue with them about financial decisions they're making even without my input, which isn't the best thing to do necessarily. But I like to try to watch out for family and friends and make sure that they're making smart decisions. So that's great that you're teaching your brother and kind of bringing him along this journey so that he can educate himself. And the lessons you teach him now are going to pay dividends for his future. Instead of taking action like you did when you're 35, he's starting to take action and start learning and educating himself and start saving money while he's 25. So that will pay him a lot of dividends in the future. So Mark, last few questions. What do you think the worst financial decision you've made in your life is?
I would definitely say over a span of time, not prioritizing building my foundation and not going down in that establishing the career path that I need to be at, while I was indulging in all of the recreational activities like trading card games. Just, I can't say it's any one particular purchase that I made, but it's just a span of time of funneling my money into one area with minimal return and not saving and not being cognizant of my future for a long time. For a long time, I was just doing enough to live in a 1-bedroom apartment and have a car and have some food on the table, but I had no savings, I had no investments, I had nothing. So getting to a point where I stopped the fun to compensate for the lack of childhood that I had, that was the biggest financial mistake that I made. Entering my 30s and realizing that, hey, I got nothing going on here. So I've seen a lot of places and I've had a lot of fun, but I don't have anything to show for it. So that's the biggest mistake I had.
When did you realize you're in financial trouble?
Well, as early as I can remember, to be honest. Honestly, upon becoming an adult, it wasn't until I always knew all along that I wasn't doing exactly what I needed to be doing, but it wasn't until I really hit my 30s when I really started to think like, wait, when I started learning about financial awareness, when I found Dave Ramsey and I started learning that I need to have a retirement. If I want to have kids, I don't want them to endure what I did. If I want to get married, I don't want to be behind the 8 ball on so many things. It was unfortunately in the latter years of my 20s and going into my 30s when it really hit me. It was just, that was the turning point for me. I went out and financed a car. I got a 2014 Chevy Cruze, the Rally Sport edition of it, with the turbocharger in it at $504 a month over 72 months.
What was the total price of that?
I rolled in $9,000 in negative equity into it. It was MSRP $15,000. I rolled in $9,000, so it was $24,504 over 72 months, and I paid every single month on it.
That is brutal. $24,000 car making $30,000 a year.
That was the worst financial, and that's before I knew anything about financial. That's before I knew anything. That was by far the worst financial mistake I've ever. Over the course of the loan, everybody's probably doing the math or know the math, or hopefully if you've gone through something like this, you're not currently going through this, which I know a lot of people are, sadly, but over the course of the life of that loan, I think the number was like $42,000 with interest.
Oh.
And ironically, when I traded it back in at the end of, when I was done, they turned around and sold it for a few $1,000s than what the MSRP was originally for. They turned around and sold it for $11,000 when I bought it for $15,000, and I paid them $42,000 over 7 years. And from this point on, I will never finance a car again, and I mean that. That is something that will not happen again.
I like that route. I'm all pro paying cars in cash, and my wife and I bought a car last year, and it was the first time I bought a car since my first car in high school. I have a truck. It's 10 years old, and my parents paid for part of it. I paid for part of it in high school. So my car my wife and I bought last year was the first car I've ever purchased myself, and my friend was trying to get me to finance the car. He's like, "Oh, do it," and didn't do it. And I'm so glad, because I would hate having, even if it was at a 2 or 3% interest rate, I would hate having a car payment every single month that's just coming out. And I was like, be done with it. Money's going to be gone anyway. And even if I could arbitrage a 5%, sit in a CD versus a 2 or 3% loan on a $30,000 car, 2% on $30,000, you're getting just $10 a month or something. You're not even making any money. And it's like, there's no point in trying to do that. So what is one piece of advice you give to someone in a similar situation as you?
I would say that it's never too late. Number one, first and foremost, it doesn't matter where you are in life. You get a 24-hour reprieve. I can go through all the analogies and all of the quotes and Dave Ramsey stuff for whoever, but hey, at the end of the day, don't ever feel like you're defeated to a point to where, your circumstance may be different. You may be working with less income. You may have people in your surroundings that are enablers or whatever the case is. If you can find that visceral passion inside of yourself to say, no, I've had enough. I owe myself the rest of my life to do better and to have financial freedom, it's never too late to start. I don't care if you're in your 20s or your 60s. You can try. You can try.
Yeah.
And it's not easy. In our case, working the amount of hours that we've worked, or more so her, I only did it for 3 months, but more so her, is not something that you ever want to find yourself doing. But if you have a means, you have a shovel, and you can start digging out of it, do it. There are going to be naysayers. People are going to think you're crazy. So what? This is your future. This is the life that you're creating for yourself.
I love that. And everyone's got time. Everyone's got the opportunity. People's circumstances are different. At the end of the day, the only person that's going to change your financial future or change your situation is you. So you got to take action. So you've already started that. I do have one quick question we didn't touch on. Why did y'all pay the student loans off before the credit cards?
They were one of the biggest sources of anxiety for her. Her credit cards are always pretty well. We actually paid her credit cards down first, and then we addressed her student loans. Her student loans were, once all the news came out and that everything was ending and coming back, we just shifted our focus straight to that. That was mine were minimal. Mine were able to be paid off pretty quickly, like over the course of like a couple weeks, actually, between both of our income. But hers, and one quick thing, I know, not to go too far into this, she had a timeshare that we were able to get out of. Oh, hear me out here. I'll make it quick. She had a timeshare that she had prior to us knowing each other. I did all the research to figure out, I know how bad they were, and I explained to her how bad they were. She had never used it. Luckily for us, I'm not going to name drop them, but luckily for us, they had to sell their property. They had some type of lawsuit, or I don't know, some big thing where they sold off the property, somebody else, and they closed all the accounts. During the time that I knew her, she had made an annual charge of like, our annual fee payment for like $1,700. And she was paying $226 a month for the timeshare when I met her. And we were so fortunate that they canceled the timeshare, and she got a check in the mail for about $4,000 that we put towards her student loans. And then around that same time, she got a $3,000 sign-on bonus from her job for a 1-year sign-on bonus that went towards her student loans as well. So there were some external factors aside from all the time that we were working, like those two things came in, but we were lucky enough to get out of a timeshare. Well, she was. It wasn't mine, but we shared.
Don't sign up for timeshares or whole life insurance policies.
Whole life or timeshares, run the other direction. Any of you guys going on a cruise, I'm going to laugh at them. I know they're going to approach us when we go on the cruise, and I'm just going to laugh at them when they try to pitch me for their timeshare. We'll never go down that road again. So yeah.
But they'll be able to pitch you on the next $7,500 cruise for the end of next year.
We would.
And you're going to say no because you're not going to bring that credit card on the vacation.
That is correct. We're in the process. We already have bought everything for that. We're discussing how much we think we want to limit ourselves to, about $500 each cash, which probably won't be I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. It might be.
Leave the credit cards at home.
I'm gonna leave the credit cards at home. Yeah, at least. Oh, I'm gonna take one for just in case. We're gonna have money that.
Mark.
All right, you know what? No, I'm sorry. Let me retract that. By the time that the cruise comes, we're gonna be out of debt and have money saved up. There won't be a need for a credit card on the cruise. I'm thinking in today's time, because I live off the credit cards, which is wrong. We're not gonna take the credit cards. Sorry about that, Bailey. Sorry.
Definitely have some things to work on with budgeting, with eating out, with impulse decisions and purchases online and using credit cards. But you and your girlfriend have done a non-traditional route of paying off debt.
And thank you for everything that you do as well.